Hi, my name is Imo, and welcome back to my channel, In My Opinion, where we inspire, where we discuss creative outlooks to endlessly inspire hope, connection, and self love. So, I wanted to get on here today because I wanted to talk about a topic that I feel has been on my heart a lot this past little while. So I really feel that our generation is going through a communication crisis. And I feel that it's pretty bad. And I think that this communication breakdown has been happening in all areas and all relationships, like family, friendships, but I especially see it play out more and more in kind of romantic or dating type relationships or dating type forms of interactions and communication. And I wanted to come on here and talk about this communication breakdown because I feel as a society, as humanity, is this really what we are coming to in terms of how we communicate with each other? And I think, unfortunately, we have entered a space in our civilization, humanity, where we are running away from uncomfortable conversations. And this has resulted, like, how we see this manifesting is that, like, for me, if I'm, how it's manifested in my life is like, especially through like dating contexts or dating situations where I'm getting to know someone, and if we hit like an uncomfortable space in our conversations, which of course is going to happen because we are two different people from two different backgrounds, experiences. In our cases, we're two different genders, two different sexes. Like, we're not going to see eye to eye on everything. We're not going to agree with everything. We're coming from different beliefs, different heritages. We see things all in different ways. So, of course, you're going to reach a point where it's like, okay, well, I don't see it the same way you do. But instead of like sitting in those emotional spaces and teasing them out and working them through, if we just like ghost people because the conversation isn't going the way we would like, we just block them, we just delete them, how are we ever going to grow as people? How are we ever going to get to the other side? How are we ever going to, like, it's just ridiculous to me because it's like, are you ever going to be in a romantic relationship with anybody where you agree wholeheartedly with everything? That will never happen. And why would you want that to happen? Why would you want to be with someone who is you essentially in the other gender? Like, you would never grow. You would never grow if you're with the same exact person as you are, with the same exact beliefs and thinking. Like, you would never grow. And that's the beauty of relationships, is so that we can learn to appreciate differences as well. So yeah, I feel it's sad that we're getting into this space where we are emotionally stunting ourselves. So I want to share a story with you all. So a few months ago, this summer, I've been on the dating apps, getting to know people, hoping to find a lasting connection, something that starts good, like as a friendship, and maybe perhaps builds into something more. And so I met someone on a dating app, and I thought we had a very good connection. He seemed like a open-minded person from the get-go, and I think during our first couple of dates, we even talked about how these dating interactions or meeting someone on the dating app can also lead to having friendships with people. So I felt like, okay, he seems very open-minded. And then what happened is we started to get to know each other more and more. Given this relationship these exchanges we were having and getting to know each other, it wasn't perfect. So because I feel like, especially as you are growing and getting older and older, you are knowing people from diverse backgrounds and cultures and experiences, and they've gone through different things, and there is always an alignment period at the beginning of every relationship where you are trying to like get on the same page with each other. And that alignment period can take a little bit of time. It can take a while. You have to communicate about things, you have to talk through things. So there's always an alignment period, especially when you grow older and you reach a certain stage of life. You are going to have differences with people. It's just going to be part of the dating experience, is that you have differences. So anyway, the connection was good. We connected in some quite a few areas that I really liked, in terms of like music and maybe the way we thought about life in certain areas. So I really liked that. One area where we didn't connect is when it came to communication. So he's not much of a texter. The way he is that he prefers to get to know you through like phone communication and through in person, which is totally fine by me. I'm more of a texter. I love to communicate a lot, and there's just certain forms of communication you can't really have over the phone. Like, for example, if I want to quickly know how your day is going, I'm not gonna be able to just like call you like you're at work, or whatever you're doing, call you each time and say, hey, how's your day going? And I'm the kind of person who likes to check in with my partner throughout the day and say like, how's your day going? I hope you're well, that kind of thing. And he was the kind of person who more so likes to wait to have a phone call or see you in the next hangout. So we had a few periods where we wouldn't really see each other until like maybe like 5 days later or a week later. And in that in between time of 5 days or what have you, he wouldn't text me all that much. And that was hard for me because not texting, I wouldn't say it's texting, but communication is really my love language. I think my love language is words of affirmation, communicating with people. I want to check in. I'd love to talk about how we are doing. I'm not an extroverted person by any means. I'm actually an introvert, but I just love to talk and communicate like, hey, this is how my day's going, this happened, that. I feel like that really helps to build a relationship, especially in the early stages. So he didn't like to text, and I did tell him like, oh, I would really appreciate, I really do like if I could hear from you more. I like it when my partner checks in with me. I'm not saying you have to text me all day long. All I'm asking is like for even 1 or 2 messages that day to say, hey, how's your day going? I hope your day's going well. This is a little bit of what I've been up to. What have you been up to? And just a little bit of an exchange for the day until we can see each other in person. That's all I was asking for. For him, he did try a little bit, but it was still not up to the level that I would like. And he just really wasn't a texter. And I felt like for me, that was ultimately a deal breaker. Like it wasn't going to work. Because I need that to feel loved, and I'm willing to compromise, but certain things like that, I just can't imagine being in a long-term relationship with someone and maybe he goes off on vacation or wherever and I don't hear from him for like a week, or I barely hear from him. I know for someone like me that just isn't going to work for me. So anyway, you can decide if I made a mistake or not, but I sent him a text. I think this was like 5 or 6 dates in. I sent him a text to say, hey, I really like you. I really, really like you. But this whole thing of not texting is really, really hard for me. Like, I don't know how I can get through it. And maybe I feel like we should just be friends. I probably didn't say maybe, but I said we should just be friends. And I was hoping that more so this text would open up a communication with us, further communication. But I didn't know him well enough to assume that would be the case. Anyway, I threw that out there as a text. I didn't hear anything from him for the rest of that day, and that was like really hard for me. It was like excruciating not hearing anything, because I was like, what's happening? I felt bad. I didn't know what was going on. The following day, I didn't hear anything. I had to send a few follow-up messages, and then I finally heard something where he said, it was really shitty of me to break it off through text. And then he said, take care, I wish you all the best. And he said that I was like guilt tripping him to reply for him to respond back. And so I got that message from him. That was the only message I got from him. I wrote back saying, I'm so sorry, I did it as a text. I don't know what I was thinking. I think in hindsight, looking back, I really should have at least waited until we saw each other again, or at least asked for a phone call. But I'm such a texter, I suppose, that I didn't think that it was that big of a deal. We had only been seeing each other for a month. It was only 6 days. That was how I was seeing things. But for him, he saw it a different way, and I'm open to that. I'm open to the fact that he saw it differently. And I apologized. I owned my part, and I said, I'm sorry, I should have waited to see you in person. But he didn't, even though I apologized, he didn't acknowledge my apology. I sent a few follow-up messages saying, I'm so sorry, I hurt you. He never addressed my texting love language and all of that. He never addressed it. It just became about you broke it off through text, and that was that. And I was ghosted, and I never heard from him ever again. And it was a huge slap in the face for me. I felt really hurt by it, honestly, because I felt that maybe I'm too much of a sentimental person for this day and age, this modern dating. But I really felt that like we had developed a deep enough connection where I just didn't feel like it was going to end in that way. And I felt like there would at least be a follow-up conversation. I felt like at least we would be friends. I felt like we hadn't been dating long enough to, I felt like we had a good enough connection, and we hadn't been dating long enough for things to just end so abruptly without communication. And I felt like he just said to me, like, take care, I wish you the best, it was shitty for you to break things off through text. But he never told me, like, there was just so much missing from that interaction. There was nothing by way of how he felt. There was nothing by way of addressing the communication style that I felt that I needed. It was just like a complete like block, like ghost you, and that was it. And I just feel like as a society we are emotionally stunted in terms of being able to fully communicate how we feel about things. And I feel like instead of communicating, we just ghost and block people, and we don't fully allow for I feel like we don't allow ourselves to sit with an uncomfortable conversation and just hear it out, like have it out, and then say our goodbyes. We just say our goodbyes prematurely, in my opinion. And I don't know, it doesn't sit well with me. And I feel sad. I feel sad that that's the state that we have gotten to, that we are almost de-evolving to. Like, we're supposed to, I feel like as human beings, we're supposed to evolve. And I feel like this form of communication that we're having in our modern societies, we're de-evolving. And I think it's really sad. So this is what I mean when I say we are having a communication breakdown in our society. Given my situation, my story is not as bad as all of the stories that I hear where people literally either ghost or block people in the middle of getting to know them with absolutely no warning that it's even going to take place. It's like people they're just unable to sit down and and communicate what they're really thinking, what is going on in their heads. If they're hurt, to actually use their words to say, hey, I'm hurt. Or to use their words to say, hey, I don't think I'm ready to be in a relationship with you at this time. Or use their words to say, hey, I don't think we align properly. This is not the right fit for me. But I really thank you for the communication that we've had these last few weeks. People are growing more and more incapable these days of using their words. And honestly, it's a pandemic, this communication breakdown. And I'm just wondering if, had it always been like this and we didn't notice, or is it because of the way that our modern society is set up that communication is breaking down more and more, like with, social media, and how social media is very much on the rise, and just communicating behind screens these days. We just have lost touch, I feel, with our human element and being able to openly communicate with each other and have uncomfortable conversations. It's like we're not capable these days of having uncomfortable conversations. We just shut that side of ourselves off and we just ignore it. And I think it's creating people these days who are emotionally unintelligent and emotionally regressed, because anytime we are faced with an opportunity, not everybody, but a lot of people these days, when they're faced with an opportunity to have an uncomfortable conversation and grow from that, they stunt their growth and they cut off that opportunity, and they don't progress forward with that conversation so that in turn that they could grow. Because you never know what is on the other side of an uncomfortable conversation, right? It could be that you grow closer with the person that you are in a relationship with. It could be you grow deeper in knowing yourself. So I honestly think it's a shame, and I feel sad that ghosting and deleting and blocking people is the go-to these days over growth mindset, having conversations that may be hard but valuable. And so this is what I want to say for those who have been on the other side of a ghosting situation. If you are somebody like me who would rather sit with an uncomfortable conversation and talk to people and communicate, given I do feel there are some instances where ghosting someone is appropriate, like for example, if there is emotional or verbal abuse, any forms of abuse, I do think it's important to just cut that person off. So there are circumstances where this form of communicating with someone is okay, but I would say for most circumstances, the conversation is the right way to go. So if you are on the receiving end of being ghosted or shut off, I just want to give some kind of comfort or acknowledgement that you're not alone in that. I think we're all suffering from this communication breakdown. I think if you're on the receiving end of it, it's really important to know that it's not you. I think the way somebody communicates in terms of ghosting or just blocking you without telling you the reason why or allowing you to have that, I think it reveals more about them and their character than it says much about the conversations that you've been having or you. I think it reveals more about their character and how they deal with things. And I honestly think it's probably for the best that they have left your life now than when you've gotten closer with them and they choose to stonewall you or cut you off in the midst of a really important conversation or issue that you're having in your relationship. So I would say that it doesn't say much about you. It talks immensely about them and how they're able to handle situations and their ability to sit with uncomfortable things and work through and move past uncomfortable things. I would also say that if you are on the receiving end of ghosting or blocking, don't let it discourage you. Don't let it stop you from meeting other people. Don't let it make you bitter or hard or calloused to the point where you become like those people and you start ghosting people or blocking people without giving them the decency of a conversation. I think in this day and age, we really have to try our best to hold to these principles and these morals. And I think for those of us who see the value of communicating, we have to keep doing it, and we have to like create a new trend almost. Like we have to keep pushing and like being who we are and not allowing the breakdown of communication to make us change. So I would say like keep doing you, like keep being who you are, keep having those uncomfortable conversations and keep growing, because ultimately those of us who are here who still like to communicate, we're going to benefit the most in terms of growing, and eventually we'll meet like-minded people who are similar and who do sit with things and do like to talk things out. So I would say that. I would say, what else would I say is good advice? What advice do you all have? Like, what advice would you have for people who have been ghosted or blocked with no chance to communicate, to talk it through? What would you say? What has helped you in those situations? Yeah, I think it can be really hard not to take it personally. I think it can be really hard not to take it personally, especially when you've invested a lot into the conversations. Maybe you've met in person a few times, you've had lengthy messages, you've talked on the phone. I think it can be hard not to take it personally and hard not to feel hurt. But I would say it's okay to feel hurt by it, and it's okay to just sit with the emotions for a bit. And yeah, it can be really hard. I know that it can be really challenging, but don't let it overtake everything. Like, still get on with your day. Like, if you can, still get on with the things that are important to you, whatever your vocation are, whatever your hobbies are, projects, self-care, different things that you want to do. Like, put those things first, prioritize them, do them, and try to, by doing these things, I think it helps you like get out of magnifying this experience in your mind. So I would say stick to the things that are you, that you enjoy, and keep doing them. And I would say honestly, it's their loss, because I always think that like the universe or God removes people from your life that shouldn't be in your life, even if it's really challenging and it's really tough. These are the instances where those people are removed. And honestly, if those people that you've been communicating with block you or ghost you, then I think that they have done you a favor ultimately. And I think that's the beauty of life, is that sometimes the things that need to leave your life, they leave for you. And it doesn't feel like that in the moment, but if they've left, they've done you a favor, because I can't imagine, like, if this is how they communicate with you so early into your relationship, into your interactions with each other, I can't imagine what's going to happen later. I think that you've been spared from greater heartbreak later on. So it's hard to realize that in the moment, but yeah, it can be really hard to realize that in the moment, but it's important to understand that them leaving your life is doing you a greater favor in the long run. And honestly, Honestly, I feel really bad for them because I feel that if this is the way that they choose to communicate, they're really missing out. They're missing out on getting to know new and unique and different people. Um, they're missing out on, yes, what could be challenging and harder conversations, but they're missing out on moving through those conversations and seeing the beauty in those conversations and moving through them as a couple or as friends or whatever, moving through them and coming out the other side potentially stronger. They're missing out on those opportunities, on on those experiences, and if they're just continually cutting off people who they either don't agree with or are afraid to have an uncomfortable conversation with, then they're always going to be in this position because there is no one they're going to meet who they will not have a disagreement or butt heads with at some point. And I think, like anything, in order to get good at anything, you have to practice. And the more we practice having uncomfortable conversations, the better we get at having them. They don't seem like such a big deal. We get better as humanity at resolving things quickly, at dealing with differences. We get better at having strategies and tools of being able to have relationships where we disagree, even if they're romantic relationships. We get better at appreciating each other's differences rather than running away from them. I think being ghosted or blocked or dismissed or ignored, any forms of communication avoidance like that, can be really heartbreaking and disheartening and disappointing. But I would say that one thing that one needs to do on the receiving end of that form of communication or lack of communication is to really just sit with the emotions and accept them. I think the first step is really just accepting that it happened and allowing yourself the space to process that it happened and feeling sad and allowing yourself to go through the chain of emotions that you do need to feel when something disheartening has happened to you. So I think acceptance and just sitting with the emotions is really important. I think that no one should be made to feel bad for communicating. I think communication is a form of freedom. Communication is the way that you put forth the way that you are, who you are, your values, what you stand for, your backgrounds. Who we are is expressed through how we talk, how we communicate. And so if communicating, which is meant to be a form of freedom, a form of expression, if communication is leading to you being shut down, leading to you being blocked or dismissed or ignored, ghosted, I think that person doesn't value you. And like I said earlier, it shows more about who they are than it says anything about you, because I don't think we should be ghosted, blocked, or ignored for being who we are, for expressing who we are. Who we are is very important. It's very intimate. It's very delicate and fragile. There is a whole universe and history, like looking inside of a kaleidoscope or an intricate painting or what have you. Who we are is craftsmanship, and it's beautiful. And we shouldn't be made to feel low for expressing who we are and expressing our needs and our desires and wants and what makes us us. And so I don't feel like we shouldn't feel ashamed for doing that. And I think if we are made to feel ashamed for doing that because we are ignored or dismissed, then that says a lot about the person who's doing that, the person on that other end, who is choosing to take a beautiful opportunity for exchange and interchange, like they are taking an opportunity essentially to get to know you, as an opportunity to love you, to grow with you, to build with you, and they're just destroying it and dismissing it and kicking it and ghosting you and blocking you. And if that's how they choose to treat the opportunity, then you can do better. We can do better. So yeah, that's what I would say.